Hey everyone, welcome back to the FantasyPros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, and Mike Tagliere is back with us today. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, you hanging in there, man?
Oh yeah, it's good to be back, man. I'm sorry to those who messaged me saying, why weren't you on the Sit Start pod during the fantasy playoffs? But my entire household is dealing with the flu right now. My son had pneumonia last week, so it's been a bad time. But I'm definitely happy to be back on the show today to talk some DFS, because it is. If you're listening to this and you haven't taken a look at the slate, it's a really tough one to kind of pick your spots. So I'm really happy for the guest that we have on with us today.
I don't like this slate, but again, that's why we do this, is so that we can pick each other's brains and really refine our lineups and everything. And we have one of the best possible guests on to do that. I can't wait to hear what he has to say so I can build a great lineup. It's Justin MacMahan of DFS Insider. Justin, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, no pressure with that lead up. I hope I don't sink everyone's lineups.
Well, dude, you've won like what, $500,000 at this point?
Well, there's variation every week. Things can go wrong. Just throw that disclaimer out there now. But I actually really do like this week. I think it's a tough week for a lot of people, but there's some low-owned plays that I'm excited about, and I will share those on the show.
Well, I know one of them because I saw it on your Twitter, and I immediately put him in my lineup, because if you've got a play you're super pumped about, he is always in my lineup. I don't know if I've ever been burned, like maybe once, and at that point it was just like something stupid happened or whatever. But anyway, Justin is on Twitter at Justin MacMahan, and Justin, you're hosting a new podcast. It's called Bets for Vets. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'd kind of sworn off of hosting my own podcast about a year ago. I was like, you know what, I'll just be a guest on other people's podcasts, because I had hosted one and we had a lot of big guests come on, and it was just so time consuming, and I was like, I think I'm done with it. So then someone reached out to me about a few weeks ago and asked if I would be interested in doing one and what it would take to get me to host one. And I said that I wanted it to have some positive impact in society other than just giving people betting advice. And so what it ended up being, and what it is now that I'm really excited about, is for every 100 views on any episode of the show, we're donating $5 to charity. It's called Bets for Vets, and we're donating $5 to Operation Homefront, which helps military veterans and their families, helps them with all kinds of things that I think the government maybe could be doing a lot better to help the veterans, and we need these private organizations to come in and help the vets more than they're getting. And so I'm really excited about supporting this charity. They donate over 90% of the money that goes to them goes directly into the programs, which is really high. A lot of people don't actually know that about a lot of charities, that most of the money that you donate doesn't end up going to the program itself. And so this is one where it does, and I'm really happy about supporting it. We've already donated $18 after the first episode. The second episode is on pace for about $25. I'm doing on Mondays and Thursdays. It's only about 20 minutes long. It's just me. I'm giving you some betting advice, my top bet for the week. And so, yeah, it's a fun project, and I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we're donating hundreds of dollars every week.
Awesome, man. Love to hear that. My father's been active military for almost 30 years, and my sister and grandfather served as well. So definitely appreciate that big time. Okay, guys, we're going to get into the DFS portion of the podcast today, and we're going to be talking FanDuel, DraftKings. As always, we're going to start at the quarterback position, talk cash games, then we'll circle back around and go GPP. At the end of the show, we're going to give our stack of the week, our GPP stack of the week, and then our lock of the week. So just to make sure to have those ones prepared. Before we do, though, I want to remind you all, we've got a signed helmet that we're giving away. It is signed by David Johnson. It's a Cardinals helmet. You can enter for this contest at fantasypros.com/contest. We're going to be picking one lucky listener to give that bad boy away to. And it comes to us from pristineauction.com. And if you're looking for a Christmas gift for guys, it is so hard to shop for your dad or anybody in your life. If you're a girl listening to this show and you're looking to, shop for your husband or significant other, they don't really want anything. They buy whatever they want, right? That's what I do. So get them some sports memorabilia. Everything on this site is guaranteed authentic from the most trusted source, and they've got so many things to choose from. No matter who you're a fan of, even if it's like the Buffalo Bills, you'll be able to find something that you absolutely love for your cave. And you're going to be surprised by some of the prices too. I'm looking at Pristine every day just to make sure that I'm not missing out on any great deals. And, I saw yesterday a Kurt Warner signed Rams jersey went for just $98. Or you can go, there's other old school stuff like a Drew Bledsoe signed Nike football went for $61. Or you can go to something more today, like Denzel Ward, the rookie out of the Browns. You get a signed football from him for $86. You're going to be surprised by some of the deals you can find. If you're keeping an eye out, you're going to find some amazing ones that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. Again, it's pristineauction.com. Pristine. And when you buy something from them, make sure to let them know Fantasy Pros sent you. That way we can keep doing these giveaways. So Justin, on the betting front, we're also doing something. We're opening up a new website called Betting Pros, and it's going to be pretty similar. Tags, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's so awesome. So basically, the birth of Fantasy Pros in general to me came to the expert consensus ranking, right? It's like where we go where, instead of asking fantasy analysts on Twitter, who am I going to start? Who do I start? Do this. You basically can get a consensus of everyone in the industry's thoughts in one place. So we felt that there was a need to do that. Now that betting's become legal in certain states and it's going to continue to become legal across the country, we wanted to do the same exact thing with analysts in the industry and take their picks on games. So when you go to the site, you're able to see the consensus. You could see, basically you could sort it by top 20 in the industry, what they're thinking, because we do have an accuracy competition. So it's a whole lot of fun. We've been doing it this year, and we wanted to get as much results as we could before making it public. So now that we've had a full 14 weeks of action, we're ready to make it public and give you guys kind of a taste as to what we're going to bring to you guys throughout the year with all different sorts of sports. So make sure to check it out at bettingpros.com.
By the way, Tags isn't going to mention this, so I will. We have 145 analysts that are making their betting picks, public. Tags finished number 3 last week out of all of them. So congrats to Tags.
Yeah, thanks, guys. In a week where the NFL was somewhat unpredictable, I'll take it.
Can we give our favorite bets of the week? Tags, who was yours?
This week?
Yeah.
Who would mine be this week? I think people are going to be kind of shocked to hear it, but I think I'm going to go at Jacksonville.
Oh no!
Really? Oh wow!
Yeah, and I'm against the consensus, by the way. So like
you're crazy. I've got Washington as one of my favorites.
Me too. Washington +7. That's like the lowest over/under Vegas has put out in years. It's great to take +7.
Well, hold on, Justin. Aren't you a Washington fan?
I'm a Washington fan, and I've also studied a lot of the film over the last few days. I've watched every Josh Johnson snap from every angle.
He's not bad.
He's actually really good. I'm so impressed. Every throw he made was perfect, other than like 2, and he had one-on-one plays against linebackers over and over again in open field, and nobody was able to tackle him. He got around everybody.
And Jacksonville's just like giving up on the season. And here's the thing, okay? They've been held to 0 or 1 touchdowns 8 of 13 games. And sure, Washington struggled lately, but they still have one of the best defenses in the NFC. I'm not willing to say that Jacksonville is going to blow anybody out. They're not going to beat anyone by 2 possessions. Now, Tags, it's your turn. You can tell us why it's your favorite, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of people have kind of written off Jacksonville as a bad team, and I really am not ready to say that they're a bad defense. Their defense, it might not be what it was last year, but, I mean, before that 238-yard, 4-touchdown performance to Derrick Henry, I mean, think about this. They've still allowed the second fewest passing yards, the fewest passing touchdowns. They're top 15 against the run despite that performance. I just feel like this is a week where Jacksonville's at home. Leonard Fournette, had a down week last week. I think they understand what they need to do on offense against Washington. And if you look at Washington, like this is going into one of my favorite DFS plays of the week is Leonard Fournette. I mean, you look at Washington over the last 6 games, they've been destroyed against the run. They're allowing 5.34 yards per carry over that time. And it wasn't like they were playing some dominant opponents every single week either. I just feel like this is a week where Jacksonville can run the ball. They're going to play elite defense. I think there's a reason that Josh Johnson was not starting for any other team or backing up for any other team in the NFL. I'm not saying that he's terrible in terms of like fantasy wise, because he will be able to run a little bit just because Jacksonville does play a lot of man coverage, but he has no one to go to in the passing game. Josh Doxson's in the concussion protocol. You have Jordan Reed, who's going to miss this game.
Vernon Davis.
That's the thing is,
I've been saying that all week, Justin. I'd love to hear you say, and I love Jamison Crowder because the Jags aren't very good against the slot.
I just think that Jacksonville isn't as bad as against tight ends as some people think they do. And that's where Vernon Davis even comes into an issue.
To be fair, Tags, the pick that I am on is Washington over 14.5 points. I'm actually on that even more than the +7 because the defense was in shambles last week, and a lot of the defensive players have been taking shots at the coaching staff and the media this week. saying that they've changed everything. Everything that was working, they've changed it, and now they can't get back to what was working. And so I am a little hesitant to trust the defense, especially because the run defense is falling apart, and I'm a little worried about Fournette. But I do think that Johnson is very capable. I mean, he hit over 14.5 last week, and he didn't enter the game until there was 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback in 4 possessions.
Yeah, he finished at QB3. And if you watch a lot of his runs, they were designed run plays. They're basically playing him as if he's Lamar Jackson. So I said earlier this year, like, you'll never be able to get Lamar Jackson for under 5,000 again when he was like 4.8 on DraftKings. And now you can get Josh Johnson for 4.3 thousand. And I think he's basically Lamar Jackson prototype.
Wow. Okay, well, here's my pick.
Hold on a second. You caught me on the spot, so I do want to mention that, like if I were to go back and redo this, I might. There's 2 other games I really feel really good about. I would say Minnesota -7. I like them, and I would say Green Bay +6.
I got Green Bay +6 as my number 2 pick. I agree with that one. My number 1 is Tampa Bay +7.5. They're going up against Baltimore, who I know has a great defense. And everyone's thinking the Bucs have the worst defense in the NFL. Not so much over the past month. They've been pretty good. They're going up against a hobbling Lamar Jackson, who's going to have to sit in the pocket against Baltimore. Maybe he runs a little bit, but he's got a sprained ankle. And Jackson in 4 starts so far, he's gone against bottom quadrant secondaries, and he's yet to complete 15 passes or even throw for 180 yards in any of them. I'm expecting Tampa's offense to be able to do enough to keep this game within a possession.
I'll throw in one more. I also like Dolphins +7. I don't think that they're getting any respect, and I don't think it was a total fluke that they beat the Patriots. Obviously, the last play was a fluke, but I think that they've been better all season than people give them credit for. And to get +7 against the Vikings, who look horrible, and Kirk Cousins looks as bad as he's always looked, but people didn't realize it. So I think the Vikings are overrated and the Dolphins are a little bit underrated. So +7 in a low-scoring game, I'm a big fan of those spreads.
Tags, do you remember last week when I joked that my bold prediction was going to be the Dolphins beat the Patriots again?
You did. It was off the air. I think it was cut out of the podcast because that was.
Well, I mean, it was a joke. Like, I can't claim it, but maybe we can just go back and say that was my bold prediction. I don't even remember what ours were. I know that you said Jared Goff was going to be awful. That was a good call. Let's move on, and we'll talk about the quarterback position. Now, you talked about Josh Johnson. Justin, is that who you're playing in cash games?
I'm probably using Josh Johnson everywhere. I think his it seems wild in cash games to use someone that's, for lack of a better term, so bad. But I think that his rushing upside just gives him enough of a floor. It's really like using Lamar Jackson. I think he could easily score. I mean, Jackson has scored 1 touchdown tops in every game, and he's been hitting value in every single game. I don't think last game he scored 2, but both were through the air. And then he had 1 rushing touchdown in a couple games. I don't think it's going to be too hard for Johnson to get 1 or 2 touchdowns, and I think that's all he needs. I think he could hit value with 1 score and 60-something rushing yards and about 150 pass yards. I'd be happy with that.
And then you don't have to have crappy receivers like I'm going to have.
Right, exactly. Although I might play Michael Gallup for the 5th week in a row anyway. But then if you stack Johnson, which I don't think I would do in cash, but if you stack him in GPPs, then you have just insane value. Vernon Davis is 3.2 thousand and Jamison Crowder is 3.7. So the whole stack combined is 10,200 on DraftKings. So you have like unlimited salary for the rest of your spots.
Tags, this makes me way too nervous. Like, I get it. You know, all he needs to hit value, like 3x value, 12 points. So if, let's say the over-under on his rushing yards is 50, I feel like that's pretty conservative. That means he just needs 7 points, so 1 touchdown and 75 passing yards. That seems pretty safe to me, Tags. What do you think, man?
Well, if you're gonna go off 3x, then yeah, I would say that he's worth it at 4,300. But my issue here is that today's football game is different. You know, if this was like 4 years ago in DFS and he was playing the exact way he's playing right now, he would be like a lock to play. But today's NFL is so pass heavy, and the thing is it's allowing for massive point totals. So every single week to get inside the top 12 fantasy quarterbacks, which you essentially have to do, even if you're playing cash lineups, you want to get one of those top 12 fantasy quarterbacks. And to get in there, it's often taking 20 plus fantasy points. So it's not necessarily a 3x with quarterbacks for me.
Well, 4x for him is 180 passing yards with those 50 rushing yards.
I'm not saying, then that's the thing. I'm not saying that he can't hit value. My issue, and the reason that I'm probably not going to use him in cash games, is because I I don't think that there's many big names that I need to pay up for this week, where I think I could pay. Actually, this week of any, I feel like I could spend up a defense if I want to. I could spend up a tight end if I want to. I could even spend up a quarterback. So I just don't feel great about any of the big names that are big prices this week, and that's why ultimately, I mean, it's just tough for me to go down to that when I'm looking at ceiling. Ideally, so when you're putting together your lineups this week, I think what you should do is look and say, okay, on the main slate, what quarterback am I projecting for the most fantasy points, period? Like, don't even worry about price.
Not even close.
Who would you say it is?
Big Ben.
Probably Big Ben.
Not even close.
Big Ben's my top elite quarterback.
Would you guys say that Brady is even in the same realm?
Our consensus projections have him 4.6 points behind. I mean, the difference between Big Ben and Tom Brady is the same difference between Tom Brady and, let's see, Mitch Trubisky, who was our number 12 quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'm just trying to think about that game, and if Roethlisberger's going off, Brady, it's not a primetime game, but I mean, it's in Pittsburgh. Typically, the scoring in that stadium is nuts. You know, Brady and Gronk against that Pittsburgh team have a nasty connection. They've never faced Josh Gordon. He's got all of his weapons back. You know, Edelman's got a great matchup in the slot.
Brady's been playing a lot better lately too.
Yeah, Brady's coming off of his best game of the year. So I think Brady and Roethlisberger are the two that I've gone back and forth and debated, like when starting to go through DFS. Like, I looked at Nick Mullins at 4,800 and I was like, I don't really want to do that. I think one that we probably should talk about that I think a lot of people are going to play is Dak Prescott.
That's my guy. That's who I was going to talk about. It's funny we're all going in different directions. And Tags, I thought you were going to go with Josh Allen since you're his biggest fan.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I've got Dak Prescott. I think he's probably going to be the highest owned. I definitely see the point in what you guys are saying about Big Ben, Tom Brady, Josh Johnson. But for me, it's Dak. He's been playing so well lately since Amari Cooper came on the team. He's the number 4 fantasy quarterback. He's going up against Indianapolis in the Dome. Indianapolis, it looks like they've been good, but like you said, Tex, they haven't gone up against any quarterbacks until last week. I think this is a good, safe spot for him.
I do like Dak. I'm probably playing Zeke, so I'm almost definitely playing Zeke. So in cash, you could play Dak, and then you'll get ruined by fullback vulture touchdowns. But I really, another guy, you mentioned Josh Allen. One thing I wanted to touch on between Josh Johnson and Josh Allen is that Allen is a GPP play because his rushing yards come from scrambling, which in my opinion is unpredictable. Josh Johnson and Lamar Jackson are cash plays because they run on designed run plays. So that to me is the big difference between a Johnson and an Allen. Not only is Allen overpriced now and Johnson's underpriced, but he ran at least half of his runs were designed runs. And then I also liked what Jay Gruden did on a couple plays. They ran one passing read and then it's designed run after that. So there was one receiver who ran a route, and it was weird because it looked like you watch the game and you watch the film and it looks like, wow, they must have had Josh Johnson all season and been preparing for this. But no, somehow they got him a week ago and they already had a full set of plays designed for him. That tells me that last week they were already thinking, hey, this guy looks good. We may end up switching from Mark Sanchez to him anyway. And I think it just worked out perfectly that Sanchez got down 40-0, looked awful again, and Johnson came in and looked great. But I think that they've already started redesigning this offense so that it works for his skill set. I bet that they're watching a lot of Ravens film and they're going to steal a lot of the plays right out of the Ravens playbook because they ran some stuff that looked really similar to what Jackson's been running.
Now, Tags, you mentioned, who was it? Nick Mullins, who's been playing great lately. I posted something on Twitter just comparing him to last year's MVP, Tom Brady. If you prorate Nick Mullins' stats, they're right up there with Tom Brady except for the interceptions. Now, the interceptions don't matter so much in fantasy football. Nick Mullins has been pretty good, and he's a good price. Is he someone you're considering?
I mean, I looked at him because he's 4,800, but, you know, talking about that floor of fantasy quarterbacks, he doesn't really come with a rushing floor. It was more about the matchup with Seattle. Seattle has, they've allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 6 of the last 7 games. We saw Mullins throw for 414 yards and 2 touchdowns against them 2 weeks ago in Seattle. That's a really tough place to play. He was without Marquise Goodwin for that game. I know Goodwin came back, but he came back as a part-time player, oddly. He's like number 4 in snaps in the team, so that doesn't change too much. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel great about Mullins, but he was kind of like, if you wanted to go cheap, I just wanted to throw his name out there.
Sure. Is there anybody else even on your radar, Justin? Or that you think wouldn't be a bad play if someone's considering?
I like Jameis Winston, okay.
Oh, no.
Do you really? Oh, man, on cash games?
So I actually think that the defense doesn't matter argument has some legitimacy, but it also... The Ravens are not an elite passing defense. It's just not. It's kind of an overblown thing. They're solid, but they're not elite, and Winston's volume is just so good. But I'm more of a GPP player, and so I've been looking at Winston for GPPs, but I think I really am going to go with either Ben or Josh Johnson. I'm going like upper tier or absolute bottom, depending on how the rest of my build works out.
I would dispute that the Ravens aren't a good pass defense. I think they're actually like elite.
They weren't great before Jimmy Smith was activated. But...
Well, Jimmy Smith hasn't even been that good. He hasn't even been that good, to be honest with you. Jimmy Smith's been their worst corner. Marlon Humphrey's been awesome. Brandon Carr's been awesome. But they allow a league low 59% completion rate, a league low 6.2 yards per attempt. Like they've been really good. Like their schedule has been somewhat favorable. They've only intercepted 6 passes, but I mean, when you see Mahomes throw only 2 touchdowns against a team, it's like I think they did their best to limit him. But Jameis in the cold on the road in Baltimore and against a team that literally is like it's do or die time. Like if they lose another game, they're done.
We've seen Jameis in bad weather too. It makes me nervous. But keep in mind as well, I think a lot of people forget this just because he's such a volume hog in terms of all the pass attempts and everything. He can run too. He's got 48 and 47 rushing yards the past 2 games.
Exactly. The running quarterback high floor is something that I like. It's also the second highest over-under on the whole slate. It could be high scoring. I don't love actually picking quarterbacks and wide receivers against Lamar Jackson just because the Ravens hog the ball so much with the way that they run their offense now. But I still think Winston's volume and rushing gives him enough of a floor. But still, he's more of a GPP player.
Sure. Okay, so let's move on to cash games for running backs. And for me, man, I have got to get Zeke in my lineup. I'm not sure he's my lock of the week, but he's definitely in consideration for it. Justin, you said, yeah, you agree he's the number one guy you got to have?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been him and McCaffrey every week for me. The two of them are on record-breaking pace for expected fantasy points. Like the volume that they're getting between their two teams, they're both so far ahead of Saquon Barkley, who's averaging 4 fewer expected fantasy points a game in the last 5 weeks and 6 fewer actual fantasy points per game. And Barkley's priced up there at the same price point. I think you have to go Elliott. The only way I play Barkley is if I'm playing Elliott and Barkley.
Okay. I have 4 running backs I love. Tags, let's see if your favorite guy is among them.
Yeah, so, I mean, I like Elliott. He's really expensive. I feel like you might be able to get similar production out of Leonard Fournette. You might be able to, the thing is through the air. Zeke has been much more involved in the passing game than anybody realizes. I posted a stat on Twitter. Over the last 6 weeks, Ezekiel Elliott has more passing production than David Johnson does on the season, like on the entire season, not just over a 6-game sample.
Yeah, he has 40 targets in his last 5 games.
It's ridiculous. In Indianapolis, their linebackers do allow a high catch rate and coverage, so I do like the Elliott pick, especially on DraftKings. I would be a little weary if you're playing on FanDuel, just because, so Indianapolis is still yet to allow a 100-yard running back against them, which is a crazy stat. I think they're the only team left in the NFL. Maybe the Saints are, but I'm telling you, like their run defense has been really good. So I mean, I like Fournette. I don't think he's probably not as safe as Elliott, but you're also paying for that safety. But my 2 favorites, I think, is down in the middle tier. I like Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon.
Dalvin Cook and Mixon are both in my lineups. You nailed it, man.
Yeah, I think those are pretty consensus running backs. It's tough to get off of them even in GPPs, so definitely for cash games, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I had to go down and get all these garbage receivers because there was no way I wasn't including Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. I thought about David Johnson instead of Zeke, but Zeke's my favorite because David Johnson's the other one. You know, he's dealing with a quadricep injury, but he's going up into a very good matchup against the Cardinals, who are not good against pass-catching backs. But he hasn't, like you just said, he hasn't been involved in the passing game as much. You look at his past 4 weeks. 3 targets, 2 targets. Finally, last week he had 10, but is that going to keep up?
But he caught like 8 for 12 yards.
Yeah, exactly. 8 for 12 yards. He's got 48 receiving yards in the past 4 weeks. That's not going to cut it.
And you know who else is in that range that's not a cash play, but for GPPs, I've been using him over and over again, and it's been infuriating, even though it works out in the end, is Aaron Jones. And I don't really understand what happened last week. He was benched for the entire first quarter, didn't play a single snap. And then he just stepped right in the second quarter and was the lead running back. And then the second half, he was the only guy who played.
Yeah, 106 yards again.
He gets 100 yards again, scores a touchdown again for the 4th week in a row, but he just does it in a way that's infuriating to watch. If I never watch the game and I just look at his production, I'm like, oh yeah, he was a good value yet again. But I don't know. And now he's going against the Bears, which is obviously a horrible matchup. That's not a guy to consider for cash at all, but in GPPs, I love Aaron Jones' talent, and his upside is always there, but it's just been weird how they're using him there.
Yeah. By the way, I did want to say that because I mentioned that on the Sunday show because I was watching that game. I was like, why is Jamal Williams starting? Like, what is happening? And I happen to think that it was something disciplinary that they didn't want to talk about in the media.
I agree. That's what it had to be, right? You don't play one snap. Like, if you don't play one snap in the first quarter and you should be the starter, I think it has to be disciplinary.
There's a lot of plays that I think are just fine, but the top 3 plays are so good that I can't really imagine doing my lineup anyway without Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. And we should probably talk about Cook and Mixon for just a little bit. Tags, is there anybody else that you even considered?
I mean, it just depends on the price point. I mentioned Fournette. I do like him. It's 7,500. I just feel like Washington, their defense has gone to hell. And they're on the road. Like Fournette's coming off a game where he didn't total many carries in that game. He wasn't very good. If Andrew Norwell doesn't return, which I'm not sure if he is just yet, it would hurt and it would downgrade him a little bit. So I might not pay up for him. I still think he's a good tournament play regardless. But if you want to go cheaper, I mean, going down to Jalen Samuels makes some sense against New England. The thing is they're not running the ball very well, and he's the pass catching back. If you have New England bracketing Juju, if you have Stephon Gilmore on Antonio Brown, you kind of look down the middle of the field and you could see Samuels or Vance McDonald having a big game. His price is 52, so it's not like so appealing that you like have to use him, but I don't think he's a terrible option. And I'd also say that Jeff Wilson at 4,600, he's definitely in play for cash.
I thought about him on DraftKings, not on FanDuel. I don't love the price on FanDuel. I also considered Tariq Cohen, Justin.
Yeah, I like Cohen. Okay. Just before we get off Samuels and if Breida is out, then that changes things. But it looks like he's going to play, so that kind of hurts Jeff Wilson. And then James Conner he hasn't practiced. If he is out, I actually really do like Jalen Samuels. That's kind of would be my pivot off Dalvin Cook probably in that price range. Last week, Samuels had 18 expected fantasy points. He didn't get the goal line carry. Ridley stole that. So he doesn't have a lot of GPP upside because I don't expect him to get the goal line carries this week. But he will get a lot of targets, and especially in a game against New England where they should be throwing a lot. Like you said, the receivers could be covered. He could have a floor of 10 and an upside of probably 20. So he's a decent cash play if he gets as many targets as he did last week.
Guys, let's talk about Cook for just a minute, right? Because when he came back from injury, he had 14 touches, 12 touches, 13 touches. And then suddenly the last 2 weeks, he went to 17 and 18. I think he gets another bump this week. Maybe he gets into the 20 range, becoming a workhorse again. He is stupid cheap, and he's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. He's forced more missed tackles than anybody per touch of the running backs. He's really good.
I like Cook, and the thing is, that's why I mentioned him, obviously. But here's the let's play a little let's go on the other end of the spectrum and say the reason you shouldn't like him. It's always a bad idea to play someone in cash that has some volatility to him. And when you have a coaching change, there's definite room for volatility. It's very possible that Mike Zimmer, says we had a timeshare last year. It worked. I don't know why we went away from it. Maybe he was, that's one of those things with DiFilippo. We don't know what the disconnect was between those two. Kirk Cousins he hasn't looked right. I can't really explain it.
Well, the offensive line is just abysmal.
It was not good last year, though. That's the thing is, I know a lot of people are talking about that. They weren't good last year, and Case Keenum was consistently under pressure, but he stood in the face of pressure and he threw the ball. That was one thing that I could say strongly about Keenum is that it's almost like pressure didn't faze him. He stepped into it, and he was always under pressure last year. He just did well.
Can we just get Case Keenum back to Minnesota, and maybe we can give Kirk Cousins to the Broncos and see what happens?
They had 3 good quarterbacks, and they abandoned all of them and went after a mediocre quarterback in Kirk Cousins. And
thank you.
I was saying at the start of the season, I was like, what are they doing? I was like, Kirk, as a big Redskins fan, I've watched all of Kirk's games, and to me, he was like the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. I thought he made the big mistakes when it counted. He didn't make the big plays.
His overall stats looked fine. His overall stats look really good, when you compare them historically. But when you watch him week over week, I agree with you, Justin. I did not think that he was. People were calling him the best free agent of all time. I wasn't aboard that.
No. And exactly. He managed to do it last week. He looked like absolute crap the whole game, and then he finishes with 61% completion rate, 208 yards, a touchdown, and no picks.
Yeah, it was a lot worse than that.
Yeah, it was terrible. He had 30 yards in the third quarter, and I mean, he was the reason that they lost the game, in my opinion. But his final stat line looks okay. He frustrates me. And another reason I'm worried about Dalvin Cook is because Latavius Murray is such a bad pass-catching running back, and the Vikings have fallen way behind in their last 2 games. So everyone's all excited. Oh, Cook's playing on over 80% of snaps the last 2 games. But I want to see what he does in a neutral or favorable game script where they're winning. So there's a lot of question marks there that make me a little less excited about cooking cash games.
Oh, Justin, you're supposed to make me feel better about my lineup, man, not worse. So Joe Mixon, we all agree he's a good player.
We all agree Joe Mixon. We really need to talk about Joe Mixon. He's probably going to...
He's going to be like 45, 50% owned against Oakland this week. I mean, you look at what he did last week. He had 26 carries, 6 targets. That'll do against Oakland.
Yeah. I think he's a great play. He'll be fine.
Our model has him as the number 1 value on DraftKings, $318 per projected point. That's really good. He's right there with Kenneth Dixon and Jalen Richard, who I think we'll talk about them a little bit later, but for cash, I don't think you can go with either of those guys. All right, let's move on over to the wide receiver position. But first, I want to talk a little bit about FanDuel.com. So I've been telling you all about a lot of GPP contests, the satellites to the World Fantasy Football Championship, the Sunday Million contest that they do every week where they give, $300,000 to the top contest. But I want to talk about the primetime slates too, because, they've got all these interesting contests where you can go super flex and whatever, but they also have contests on the primetime slate. And Justin, I know that you play a lot of those. Is there an advantage to be game there?
So the primetime advantage is that the captain spot being 1.5x value or points really allows you to lock in on your favorite pick. So if you really feel like you have an edge, the best example is the first game Nick Mullins played. I went back and studied all his film, and I was like, this guy's really good. Like, people don't realize how good he is. So I put him in the captain spot and joined like every contest on FanDuel. And I remember there was like one other person in my contest that had him as their captain in like a $300 monster league. And it just worked out perfectly. Like, he was the optimal captain. So that's the edge, because if you don't have the captain spot, then he's like 40% owned overall, but he's like 5% owned or less as a captain. So anyway, yeah, I really like those primetime slates. And now they're doing second half slates on FanDuel, which I haven't actually tried yet, just because once the games start, I'm rooting for my team. But hopefully it doesn't happen. But if my team is complete crap in the first half of the game, then maybe I'll play a second half slate.
Yeah, playing on FanDuel just makes it so much more fun. Like, when you've got something on the line, it's just a blast to watch the game. So check out FanDuel. They've got all kinds of unique contests, GPP, cash games. We're going to be talking about GPP here in just a minute. But first, let's move on over to the wide receiver position, guys. And it is so ugly. It's Amari Cooper. And then what in the world do we do?
You're going to play Amari?
You're not playing Amari?
I'm not locked in on him.
He jumps off the page on our models, man, like way above everybody else.
Yeah, well, for FanDuel, he is significantly underpriced.
What about on DraftKings?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm looking at it right now on DraftKings. He's a little underpriced. Yeah, he's our number 12 best value. On FanDuel, he's the best value by a ton. He's $6,600, and we're looking at guys like Kenny Golladay, who's like a wide receiver 30 this week, who's more expensive.
Yeah, that's an easy play then on FanDuel. Like, I'd play him there, that's for sure. So
yeah, he's probably going to be 70% owned on FanDuel this week.
Yeah, on DraftKings, he costs $2,100 more than Kenny Golladay, and that seems appropriate.
Yeah, and we've got him at 15% projected ownership. So yeah, there's a big difference. So on FanDuel, I've got Amari Cooper. Justin, what else are you doing? Because I can't make up my mind. It's just kind of like, well, how much money do I have left? Okay, I guess we'll play Corey Davis.
Right. It may come down to that for the last spot. I actually do like Kenny Golladay. It's funny that we mentioned him. He's getting enormous volume and just not doing much with it. And it's not the kind of volume that Jarvis Landry and Chris Godwin get, where it's not real catchable targets. Like, I don't know if people realize that, actually. A lot of people were complaining about Godwin last week. He only had one catchable target. He had 10 targets, technically.
Yeah, I wrote about that. Yeah.
It was like 9 throwaways and 1 real target. So there's guys like that, and Jarvis Landry.
It was amazing that he was getting that open. He played a really good game, actually.
Yeah. Winston just didn't get him the ball. But like another example, Baker Mayfield, whenever he's throwing the ball away, he always finds Landry and just throws it at his feet. So every time he's under pressure, he just flicks it in the general direction of Landry. And that makes Landry fantasy owners go nuts. Like, how does he get 12 targets and his ADOT is 4 yards? How does he have 4 catches on 12 targets when he's 4 yards down the field? So that's not the case with Golladay. He's actually getting good catchable targets. It's just good defense. And
last week was bad because Patrick Peterson's just the best in the world.
Right, yeah. He's had tough coverage, and it's not really his fault. And so I think he's going to have tough coverage again this week. That's the problem. It's not a great matchup, but the price is finally getting there, not on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, the price is getting low enough where I think he's in play. But the top option for me is Juju Smith-Schuster against New England.
I've got him in my lineup too. Man, you are making me feel a lot better now. You just got to fix the Dalvin Cook thing.
You got to fix the Dalvin Cook thing, not me.
Hey, okay. So I've got Juju too. Tags, what do you think about him?
I'm worried about him just because we saw what New England do to Adam Thielen a couple weeks ago. What they kind of did was trust Stephon Gilmore in man coverage with Stephon Diggs, and then you had Thielen bracketed. So usually the slot is a place to attack with New England. Jonathan Jones is not very good, but we saw. I think it's possible we see McCourty go into the slot and then get safety help over the top with his brother. So that's my concern with Juju, and you're paying for him. Like, you're paying for elite production when you go up to him. I would rather go to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is $100 cheaper on DK, and there hasn't been a game this year where he's scored fewer than 16 PPR points. And, I know a lot of people are worried about the Bears defense, but this is a team that the Packers are very familiar with. Like, Devontae Adams has made Fuller look stupid at times. And to be honest with you, when Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are connecting, it's not so much on the cornerback. It's more on like, okay, did Rodgers put the ball where he wanted to? Because if so, it's not defensible because the ball's thrown before a break in the route. So I just feel like Devontae Adams is about as safe as they come at wide receiver for, top 12 production. You might not get the 3X with him, but I do feel like he's the safest. So I would rather pay for him, knowing he does come with a ceiling as well, but I just think he's safer.
And it's the same kind of thing here. On DraftKings, we've got Devontae Adams as our number one projected, highest owned wide receiver. But the difference in prices there is, you're right, Adams is a little bit cheaper than Juju. And on FanDuel, Juju's $700 cheaper.
Yeah. That's the thing is, like, it makes sense on paper to play Juju. I really understand the play. I just feel like Antonio Brown might be overlooked here. Because I think that Antonio Brown in the past, like, people will look at the past performances against Belichick. You never had Juju getting as much attention as he should now. You know what I mean? Like, people are talking about this kid and they're saying it's a passing of the throne. Do you think Antonio Brown likes sitting back and, like, hearing that, like, there's a guy better than him on his own team?
I don't think he cares knowing Antonio Brown, man, if they're winning, but they're not winning.
Oh, no. He absolutely cares. Like, wide receivers are divas. Did you guys not?
Oh, yeah. Remember he made that bet with somebody to, I don't remember who it was, where they, like, gambled their cars?
It was him and Brandon Marshall, and he killed Marshall.
Yeah, I think Antonio Brown is a little bit of a diva.
Well, the thing is, and like, Antonio Brown, do you not remember his temper tantrum earlier on the sideline this year when he was mad he wasn't getting enough targets? And like,
he just seems like such a nice guy, but you're right.
But the thing is, here's the thing. Stephon Gilmore is good. Antonio Brown's better. Okay, and if you trust Stephon Gilmore in one-on-one coverage, Antonio Brown will eat him alive. Because the thing is, Corey Davis did a couple weeks back. And it's like, Stephon Gilmore came out afterwards and said, Corey Davis is just really good. So
yeah, he's not better than Antonio Brown. Yeah, that's...
Before, they would bracket Antonio Brown and put their best corner on Juju, or like on the other receiver. You know what I mean? Like, and now the tides have turned where I think one of these guys is going to be a phenomenal play. I'm just saying that I think it's risky for cash. I think if you want to take your shot in tournaments, I think Brown's going to be underowned.
Who isn't risky though? Because seriously, I'm looking at this slate tags. There's nobody that I love.
No one's really safe. Yeah, that's why I think you got to just pay up at running back this week, because I have an interesting wide receiver dart throw in the value range for GPPs if you're interested, Bobby.
Yeah, we'll get to GPP here after we get to DST. We'll circle back around. I've got quite a few, but yeah, just nobody that I like for cash games. Is there someone in the mid range that you feel is safe, Justin?
Galladay would probably be my choice just because the volume is so good. But yeah, there's nobody in the mid range. I mean, on FanDuel you obviously have Amari Cooper, but then. Yeah, there's really the mid-range is an absolute wasteland. I like Larry Fitzgerald. Okay, he's been solid, I mean,
gets Bradley Poole this week against Atlanta.
Yeah, good matchup, but not a ton of upside. I mean, in all likelihood, you're going to get 10 or 11 points, and it's not very exciting. But there's not a lot of great options there.
Tags, who do you have, man?
So if you're looking in the middle range, I think Adam Humphries is playable at 5,100. Baltimore, if there's one weakness they have, it's the slot. Tavon Young returned. He played a limited role last week. I expect him to be back at full time this week, but he's like the worst of their starters. He's allowed 3 touchdowns on 37 targets. Humphries has scored 5 touchdowns on his last 39 targets. So when you combine those two together, it's like that should be a safe option over the middle of the field along with Cameron Brate. I don't like Chris Godwin or Mike Evans very much this week, so you have to find some production because they're not going to run the ball in Baltimore. So Humphries isn't bad, is like a high floor guy, but I also like Mohamed Sanu. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, want to throw up at that one, but I just feel like Sanu, the matchup with Budda Baker is a really good one. You had Julio Jones sent home from practice today sick. I don't know if but I mean, either way, he's going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson. We've seen Calvin Ridley kind of being like an afterthought in the offense. But Budda Baker has allowed 44 of 53 passing in coverage for 460 yards, 2 touchdowns. I just feel like Sanu isn't like a high ceiling guy. He's not someone that you want to play in tournaments, but I think that you can almost lock him in for 5 catches, 50 yards in this game. And at 4,600, it's like, that's fine if you're getting the production you want out of your running backs.
I've got Corey Davis in my lineup, guys, because, just gets so many targets. It's a good matchup against the Giants. I don't really love him for cash games, but at the same time, at his price on FanDuel at least, $5,800 and all the targets he's getting, I think you could do a lot worse. It's pretty safe.
He scared me last week, but Derrick Henry took everything that offense had to give fantasy-wise, so that's probably a fluke.
He should have scored a touchdown in that game, though. Mariota just missed him in the end of the game.
Yeah.
You're right. Mariota does that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Davis's last 4 games, he's had 3, 7, 4, and 4 in targets. I don't know how he went from getting like 10 a game and 15 sometimes to that low, but it's crazy how bad cash game wide receivers are this week. There's almost nothing that you could really feel safe about. This is probably the worst week I've ever seen, and I think it's going to end up with, I think you're going to have to play GPP wide receivers basically, and just hope that one of them booms. That's another strategy that you can take. Instead of going for these like Larry Fitzgerald high floor plays who are going to get you 10 points for 5,000, maybe just play Michael Gallup, Kenny Stills, and Jamison Crowder and hope that one of them booms and makes up for the rest.
That's what we do in MLB cash games now is, you've got 9 spots. So you go for a lot of volatile, high upside guys who could hit homers when you would think you would go for the safe plays where it's like, this guy usually gets a hit. He gets on base a couple times. Maybe he'll steal a bag. No, if you get, 4 guys who hit a homer, you're going to cash.
So here's a question So Taylor Gabriel, okay, over the last 4 weeks, he has seen 31 targets. That ranks 17th among wide receivers. So he's down at 4,200 in a matchup with the Packers. You know that Allen Robinson's going to draw J.R. Alexander, which means you're going to look at Tony Brown. He's an undrafted rookie that the Packers had out there last week. I feel like Taylor Gabriel is like due for a big week. I mean, like earlier in the season, I remember like telling people, I'm like, this guy's seeing enough targets to where he's going to have one of those big games where it's just like it takes 1 or 2 plays. And at 4,200, you guys are talking about those guys that you might have to take a GPP play on cash. I think Gabriel might be that guy for me.
And he's very cheap on FanDuel as well, $5,100, which, it sounds like he's cheaper on DraftKings, but comparatively, Taylor Gabriel's cheaper on FanDuel. 9, 8, 7 targets the last 4 weeks. That's a good call, Tags. Okay, anyone else you guys want to mention before we move on over to tight end?
We kind of touched on Thielen, but I'm going to go ahead and put in my vote for Thielen as probably the safest of the cash game wide receivers.
I had him up there too. It's hard to pay for him if you want to pay up at running back. I do like Thielen a lot. They moved Bobby McCain into the slot, and he's been friggin' awful, like legit awful. Minka Fitzpatrick was so good there. They moved Fitzpatrick to the perimeter, and especially with Xavier Howard out, I think Thielen is probably going to be worth his price, and we probably should have talked more about him, to be honest with you, but it would force you to like pay down at running back a little bit, and that's really tough to do.
What about Dante Pettis and Chris Godwin, guys?
Pettis is a good one.
Pettis against Seattle.
4,400. He killed him last time.
I don't love Godwin just because of what we talked about with so many of his targets being useless. I think too many people will open the game log, see 10 targets, and just play him. So I think he'll be over-owned for that argument. But I do like Pettis.
Okay, guys, let's move on over to tight end. I know a lot of people are going to be playing George Kittle. I don't think he's a very good play, though. My favorite is Eric Ebron.
Eric Ebron's always my favorite player. Yeah. Every week, no matter what, always. I've been screaming Eric Ebron. He's been a DFI must-have 2 weeks in a row, and he has not even come close to hitting his ceiling, which has been frustrating. But he hasn't let us down. He's been hitting value.
31 targets in 3 weeks, buddy.
It's insane. I love Eric Ebron.
Tags, what do you think? Is Ebron your guy too?
I like Ebron a lot. I think you're forced to choose between Ebron and Gronk, and that's the tough part, right? Because Gronk, so he's played the Steelers 6 times in his career. Mike Tomlin has been the head coach of those games. Instead of giving you game by game, legitimately, he's dominated them every single game. He's averaged 6.5 receptions for 110.7 yards and 1.3 touchdowns per game. And on top of that, the Steelers suck against tight ends this year. Legit terrible. They allowed a 7-catch, 109-yard, 2-touchdown game to Travis Kelce. We saw Gronk back to his normal self last week. I feel like Gronk is in a smash spot too, but Ebron, I feel like Ebron's a great play too. I think he's someone that you could lock in for 8+ targets in that game, and it's not a bad matchup against Dallas. So I like both of them, honestly. I really do.
Now, Justin, you've got another play, and I know who it is. In fact, I heard you whisper it just a minute ago. I don't know if that'll show up on the podcast. I agree with you. On DraftKings, I think he's a good call. But let me ask you this before we get onto that, okay? So we got Ebron and Gronkowski, who are both great calls. I totally agree with that. Since we have so much trouble at wide receiver, what do you guys think about using Gronk, even though he's pretty expensive, as though he's a wide receiver and putting him in our flex spot? I've never done that in cash games before. I've done it in GPP, but I think this week it might be the way to go.
Oh, I like it. I would rather play Gronk than Corey Davis.
Exactly. I've done it in cash. The only thing that I don't like is that this is the kind of week where I want to just use all my salary on running backs. And then I'd want to have a third running back. If I could actually put Gronk in a wide receiver spot, that would be amazing. Because, it stinks to have 3 wide receivers this week.
Well, you told me I can't use Dalvin Cook, so now I need a flex.
You do need a flex. If James Conner plays, then you don't need Samuels in cash. So I think putting like an Ebron and Gronk combo or a Gronk Vernon Davis combo, something like that, I think could be really good.
Yeah, so the cat's out of the bag. Your guy is Vernon Davis, $3,200 on DraftKings.
Vernon Davis, a lot of people don't realize, has not been playing that many snaps this year. He's just kind of a complement to Jordan Reed, but he's fully capable of playing the whole game. And once Reed left last week, Vernon Davis played pretty much every snap and ran a passing route on just about every snap. So he's got huge upside. He's been worth it at this price quite a few times this season. He played 49 snaps last week on offense, which was about 20 more than he'd played in any game in weeks. So with Reed out, he should play pretty much the entire game. If you double his workload, he already is the recipient of at least 1 or 2 deep shots a game, plus some short out routes. He's been getting about 3 to 4 targets a lot of games, and he's actually had a couple of big plays called back due to penalty, which you wouldn't know unless you watched the games. And so there's a lot of upside here. I think he could break huge runs. He recently had his record broken for fastest sprint speed ever in the NFL. Derrick Henry broke the record the other night when he was running for his touchdown.
Wow. So you're saying Vernon Davis is coming for his record again?
I'm saying that people think of Vernon Davis as this big lumbering tight end, but he's actually one of the fastest tight ends in football. Even now, despite his old age, he is one of the fastest with sprint speed. And so people are always like, why is Vernon Davis getting these targets where the depth of target is 30 yards downfield? He runs these wheel routes out of the backfield. He'll fake like he's running a 3-yard out route, and then he'll just cut it upfield for a deep ball. And Josh Johnson is showing some willingness to take deep shots that Mark Sanchez was just incapable of doing. So there's a lot of upside for Vernon Davis and a decent floor because he's good at finding the holes in the zone and sitting down. So he can really do it all. And I'm excited to see him in his old age get out there for every snap and have a big game.
Tags, here's my favorite stat on Vernon Davis. Over the last 3 games, he has more yards than Jordan Reed. Did you know that?
Oh, I believe it. There was a long catch he had in one of those games. I don't remember who it was against, but I remember he had a long one.
Yeah, he had a 53-yarder on Thanksgiving.
That's what it was.
I mean, I know what you have to say about the Jacksonville defense actually not being bad against tight ends, and it totally makes sense. But at $3,200, could you see it, or are the Ebron and Gronk plays just too good?
I'm not going to tell someone to fade him just because of he's a guy that is going to play all the snaps. That they don't have many receiving options there, so I don't think he's the worst play at $3,200. I just don't think he's not someone I would want to play in tournaments. I think he's probably a better cash option because he's saving you a bunch of money to pay up to get some safer options in your lineup. But I think Cameron Brate might be he's 4K, and Cameron Brate might be safer and come with a little bit more upside against Baltimore.
I think if I had to bet who's going to get more targets, it would be Vernon Davis over Cameron Brate. Because Brate, he's only got 3 receptions. That's his high for the season. But you're right, in terms of touchdown upside, I think Brate's probably the guy.
Yeah, Brayton McDonald, their prices at $40,000 and $3,900. I don't think they're bad plays, but I think this week it's I will find a way to get Ebron or Gronk in my tight end slot.
One thing that to add on Vernon Davis, and I'm sure this applies to a lot of players, but something that doesn't show up in the box score is if they were the first look on a play, but then they didn't get the target. And so when I was looking at the film of Johnson, he actually looked Vernon Davis's way quite a few times before realizing that he had room to just scramble and run. And I like that from a fantasy perspective that Johnson would rather run than throw. Obviously, that is worth more points. But in the play where he ran for a 9-yard touchdown, it looked like Vernon Davis was clearly his read to throw the ball to. So that's worth noting. I think he also hit Vernon Davis on a 2-point conversion. Another thing that won't really show up the same as a red zone target, but it is worth something.
All right, guys, let's go DST really quick, and then we'll name off a few GPP plays at each position and give our locks of the week. Tags, do you have a defense that stands out to you, or is it just kind of like how much money do I have left?
It's kind of how much money do I have left, because defense is just like that's a mess. But
and DraftKings prices their defenses so well that it's always like, well, I can spend $2,400 and I can get a $2,400 defense, or I can spend $3,400 and get a $3,400 defense.
Oh yeah, I have the Lions at 2,500 as like the cheap play.
I like that.
It was like something we did earlier in the year, and I'm not going to let the last couple weeks change my opinion on Josh Allen. He's still not a good quarterback. If he rushes for some yards, so be it. But the Detroit, you should know, like if you're playing. So by the way, if you're in a season long league and you're playing Josh Allen, be concerned about that. The Lions have not allowed more than I think 18 yards rushing to a quarterback all season. They did play Trubisky earlier in the year. So, I mean, like, they played Prescott, they played Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. So they've played some mobile quarterbacks.
So what you're saying is you agree Derek Carr over Josh Allen this week?
I'd probably still go Allen, to be honest with you. I just don't trust Derek Carr with anything. But no, in regards to defense, like the Lions, I think at 2,500, you're looking. I don't think the Bills score more than 20 points in that game. The Lions do generate somewhat of a pass rush. They stop the run since they've gotten Snacks Harrison. So I mean, they did lose Ezekiel Anza. He went on IR, so that's definitely a downgrade. But when you're that low, it's not bad. And if you want to pay up, I think the Vikings or the Jags are the defenses I would go to.
I love the Vikings on FanDuel. It's really not even close for me. I know a lot of people are going to use the Bears because they're so cheap, but it's against Aaron Rodgers. I don't think there's much upside there. So it's the Vikings for me against Miami. On DraftKings, I'm going with Washington at Jacksonville. I already mentioned that, they don't score any touchdowns. You can guarantee they're going to get a bunch of sacks against that offensive line, and I think some turnovers as well. So, Justin, who do you have?
I generally go with a cheap defense that fits my lineup. So, Dolphins at 2.1 thousand against Kirk Cousins, who makes a lot of mistakes. That's someone that's on my radar. For me, it's really about looking at cheap defenses, although this is kind of a week where if I like my lineup and I can afford a defense, I may just pay for one. And then I'm kind of looking at, I like the Bills actually, just because the Lions should be passing quite a bit. And I think Stafford makes more mistakes than people think. But those are more GBP plays. I think for cash games, the Vikings are a really good play. But I don't know. I probably won't want to pay that much unless I have to. I'm really a believer that it doesn't even matter how many points allowed a defense gets. I don't think a lot of people realize this. If your defense gives up 14 points, you get 1 fantasy point. If they give up 35 points, you lose 1 fantasy point. So it's a difference of 2 between 14 and 35 points allowed. Yards don't matter. So, what am I even paying for? Like, I don't want to pay up for a defense who's not gonna allow any points, but the other team runs the ball a lot. So, they just won't get anything. So I've realized that it's all about targeting a pass-heavy offense. It's not the worst idea to go after a team like Atlanta. Like, you could play Cardinals D for 2,200. I targeted Atlanta last week and I got a pick 6 out of it. My defense was great value no matter how many points Atlanta scored. So I don't know. That's probably not even that helpful for the listener, so I apologize. But I don't have a defense for you to lock in. I would say just build around whatever fits your lineup.
I've got the Bucks against Baltimore because they've been playing a lot better defense. They're stupid cheap. This is for my cash game lineup because I needed to go cheap. I love the Vikings, but I've got the Bucks against Baltimore because we know Lamar Jackson, if he sits in the pocket, he's going to throw interceptions. He's more inaccurate than Josh Allen.
But why are you assuming that he sits in the pocket?
Because he's hurt. I don't know. I mean, maybe he runs, but I'm assuming that's not the case. Now, guys, for GPP, we're going to go a little bit quicker, so we're just going to go lightning round. We're just going to name ours, no analysis. Who are some guys that should be on your radar for GPP? You can pick out a couple guys, Justin, because I know you're super pumped.
I have one guy I want to give analysis on.
Yeah. Okay, Tags, who do you have at DST?
I'd say Packers, 2,300.
Packers against the Bears. I like that one for sure.
Yep, if Trubisky's still rusty, yep.
Who you going with, Justin?
Mine would be Dolphins against Kirk Cousins for 2,100.
Dolphins against Kirk Cousins. I've got Cincinnati Bengals against Oakland. Cincinnati's had a couple touchdowns. That happens from time to time, even with crappy ones. So let's go tight end. Tags you first.
Let's go with Vance McDonald, 3,900.
This feels like a draft or something.
Yeah, if I'm not playing Vernon Davis, I'll go with Anthony Ferkser.
Ooh,
Ferkser
against the Giants. Yeah, okay, guys, I'm gonna go with Jimmy Graham. 11 targets 2 weeks ago against Arizona. Jimmy Graham's going up against Chicago, by the way. Let's go on over to wide receiver, and let's pick 2 or 3 each. Justin, we'll let you go first on this one. I know you're really excited about someone here, so go ahead and give your analysis, buddy.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll throw out the guy that I've been playing for the last 5 weeks is Michael Gallup. Dak Prescott has missed him at least once a game on a deep target. But the other guy that I was excited to mention is Kenny Stills. So after a Week 12 loss to the Colts, Stills, quote, said, "I couldn't tell you exactly why I'm not getting more targets. I can tell you I'm getting open, but I can't throw the ball to myself." And after he said that, he's actually has jumped way up from like 104th among wide receivers and expected fantasy points per game up to top 20. And the Chargers rank first in the NFL against short passes, and they are dead last in the NFL against deep passes. So I've never seen a split like that where a team is 1-32 on the same facet of the game almost. So they are getting killed on deep balls, and Stills could definitely take advantage of that.
I want to add something to your Michael Gallup call, okay? So this is absolutely unbelievable to me. Amari Cooper in the last 5 weeks has 583 receiving yards. That's number 1 in football. And Michael Gallup is all the way down at 163 receiving yards. So over 400 fewer, but he has more air yards than Amari Cooper in that time. Can you believe that?
I know. I can't. I've watched all of them. It's so bad.
Wow.
Nice.
That's really, really good. Okay, Tags, who do you have for us, man?
I totally forgot a tight end. Can I mention Hunter Henry as a sleeper play?
Oh, I meant to do that.
Yeah, if you guys missed that, go to Twitter. You'll see the whole thing.
That's just horrible. I like everyone knows who Steven Smith is. Like, you know, he's kind of a goober. He's big time a goober, but like that made me feel so uncomfortable. I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh, it was painful to watch. Everything was wrong.
It was so bad. I never thought I would feel bad for Stephen A. Smith, but I feel so bad for him.
I don't feel bad for him.
There wasn't one thing he mentioned that was actually applicable to this game. Every single player.
Like he might have been having an aneurysm or something. I don't know.
Something went wrong in the medulla oblongata. But no, seriously. So moving back to the wide receivers, Randall Cobb. So Randall Cobb, I think, is a good tournament play. The Bears, they just lost Bryce Callahan for the year. He was playing at a Pro Bowl level in the slot. So they have Shea McManus. He's a 9-year veteran who has covered exactly 57 passes throughout his career. On those 57 passes, he's allowed 576 yards and 6 touchdowns. I feel like Cobb, he scored last week. You know, Aaron Rodgers has no trust in Valdez-Scantling and St. Brown. Basically nobody. You know what I mean? Like Devontae Adams is fine, but Randall Cobb might step up and be a good tournament play.
He's second on the team in targets, second on the team in snaps since he came back.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Is just like you have to look for plays like that. I do think I was going to mention Taylor Gabriel as someone in tournaments, but you know, after talking with you guys, it sounds like he actually wouldn't be a bad cash play because you're going to have to find some guys that are that cheap. So Taylor Gabriel is one of my favorites too.
All right, Justin, do you have another name for us?
I could throw out Josh Gordon. I think Gordon has big game upside anytime he steps on the field.
I just wish he would get targeted more. It seems like once they had Burkhead back, it's like they're not targeting him as much. Joe Hayden's likely to shadow him, I would assume. Hayden's been really good, but I mean, the thing is like, I just love Gronk in this game so much. I just feel like Gronk is going to smash.
I've got a few of them here. Stephon Diggs against Miami. Xavier Howard's probably going to be out again.
If he gets the target, Stephon Diggs can crush Minka Fitzpatrick on the perimeter.
I don't know. Fitzpatrick was all right last week.
He's fine. Like Fitzpatrick's fine. He's going to be a good cornerback, but he's not equipped to handle Diggs. But Diggs, he needs to get the targets, though, and he doesn't get the targets that Thielen does, so I think Thielen's probably the better play.
I was going to mention Kenny Golladay. Justin covered him quite a bit earlier. Allen Robinson against Green Bay, that's a really interesting one to me.
He popped up with an injury, with a hip injury. He didn't practice yesterday. It was rumored he was going to return today, but that's worrisome because he played through that hip injury earlier in the year. So
pooping on my parade all over the place, man.
Yeah, it sucks.
Can I have someone?
I'm sorry.
I would like to toss in that Pro Football Focus has Joe Hayden as a 68 overall this year, which is like just right around average.
So the reason I say that, though, is the last 2 big-name wide receivers that he shadowed were Julio Jones, who finished with 5 catches for 62 yards, no touchdown, and A.J. Green, who finished with 7 catches for 85 yards on 12 targets. So those were just like 2 big-name wide receivers that he did shadow and he did well against.
So I lied to everyone on last week's podcast. I accidentally said that Kenny Stills was going to win someone $1 million, but the biggest prize was $300,000. So I was wrong. He only won someone $300,000.
Damn it, Bobby. You got better than that.
Kenny Stills. I love it.
My other play is Odell Beckham going up against Tennessee. He practiced on Wednesday. It was a limited practice, but I think he's going to play. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, he was injured. I don't think I want to play him. He could be nuts.
Yeah, I mean, perimeter wide receivers against in that matchup is phenomenal. Like, if you go through it, Tennessee, like, so I have this spreadsheet that I do of passing production, like quarterbacks distribute to wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. So 59.3% of production in PPR formats goes to the wide receivers against Tennessee. That's the second highest number in the league behind only New Orleans. So I do love Beckham, but the thing is, he didn't practice today. I just saw that he was a non-participant, and that he says he won't know until Sunday if he plays, but he's feeling better every day.
Hey, I just realized that it is just one of those days messing with the Chargers, because I was reading off Chargers defensive stats for Kenny Stills. I have no idea why, even though we've been talking about how they're playing the Vikings all day.
You had a Stephen A moment. It's okay.
Yeah, I had a Stephen A moment. You can feel free to leave it in. I'm not gonna Stephen A everybody and be like, oh, I was talking about Virgil Green, who has like 0 catches in the last 4 weeks. I just made a mistake, and I'm owning up to it.
All right. My running back, I mentioned him earlier, is Kenneth Dixon. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he leads this team in touches this week, and he's a monster. It could be a great matchup for him. Tags, you like this one too?
Yeah, he's 3,500, man. Like, it's very possible that he outtouches Gus Edwards, and Dixon has actually been involved.
8x upside, baby.
Yeah, and he's been involved in the passing game a little bit, so that's always positive. Definitely like Dixon. I think that another player, if you want to go down, like Ito Smith is good at 3,700, but Rex Burkhead. Okay, so this sounds terrible. I get it. It really does. But would anybody be shocked? Like, is there anybody else available for $3,300 that can score multiple touchdowns? Like, would it shock you guys? Let's just pretend, like, envision it in your mind that the Patriots are playing the Steelers and Rex Burkhead comes in and goal line and he scores 2 touchdowns.
Well, I mean, Brandon Bolden did it last week, so I think really anyone can do it.
That's what I'm saying, 3,300.
I agree. The Patriots are unpredictable. I'm not touching their running back situation at all.
Sure. Yeah, and GPP, I guess I could see it, Tags.
I don't want my money on Rex Burkhead, but I don't want my money against Rex Burkhead either.
Fair. That's fair.
All right, who do you like, Justin?
I actually do like Aaron Jones. I know the matchup is horrible, but even if he averages 3 or 4 yards per carry, he should get 20 touches. I agree with you guys. I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that he was benched in the first quarter for disciplinary reasons. I hope that the reason he was benched is that he stood up and said, now that McCarthy's gone, can I please get the ball? and maybe he said it with some profanity that I don't want to put on FantasyPros, a very respectable company. I can't, not going to put some profanity out there in case the kids are listening. But I think Aaron Jones should get all 4 quarters of work this week. And if that means 20 carries and 6 targets or whatever that is.
I'd take 20 targets too.
I would take 20 targets as well. I don't think that'll happen, but I think he could get 5 or 6 targets. He's been doing it lately, and with 4 quarters of play instead of 3, he scored a touchdown in 5 straight games. So he's a guy that is just worth taking a flyer on in GBPs because he'll be pretty low owned in this bad matchup.
You guys all ready for Tags to yell at me because it's coming? Happens every GPP segment. You ready for this, Tags?
Yep.
I bet you could guess who it is, actually.
No, I'm not going to guess.
Free Cohen.
Zach Zenner, baby.
Yeah, Zach
Oh,
Zenner.
are you messing with me?
Zenner. No, I love Zach Zenner. He's awesome.
He's so big and he's super fast. I mean, he's not a super talented running back, but he's big and he's fast, and he could break off a run against Buffalo. He had 12 carries last game. I think he has passed up Blunt. Maybe, just maybe, he gets 17, 18 of them.
I wrote up Zenner as a super deep GBP play on Thanksgiving.
Justin, just keep talking so that Tags can't dispute this.
Yeah, no, I liked Zenner so much on Thanksgiving, and he didn't get to play at all. And I was like, why is Blunt playing? And it was so frustrating, but I figured he'd pass up Blunt eventually. Last week looked like it could be the week. I probably won't play him this week, Bobby, but I will be rooting for him.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, so you'll be rooting for me when I'm winning $300,000. Now, Tags, tell us why you don't love Zach Zenner. I don't know why, but I guess you can talk.
I don't love the Detroit run game, period. I just don't. I think that it's going to be a split. Matt Patricia does love the Garrett Blunt. That's why he's even on the team to begin with. He didn't fit this offense, and I think that's clear. When Kerryon Johnson's on the field, this team just runs better. They've really struggled without him. Theo Riddick is a wide receiver, but he's getting a lot of the passing down work. I think we're going to see LeGarrette Blount inside the 5. I just don't feel like Zenner has the role, and that's the thing. I think Justin's right, is that he's rooting for the guy, but he's not going to play him.
All right, anybody else, guys?
I don't think anybody that we need to play. Yeah, I mean, Sony Michel. I already mentioned Rex Burkhead, so I'm just going to throw Sony Michel out there because I do think that there's a good chance that New England has a running back with 2 touchdowns this week, and I think it's Burkhead or Michel.
I think Spencer Ware.
All right, quarterback position, guys. Who are we going with for GPP?
Well, I'm not even going to spend any more time on Josh Johnson, but that's the guy. That is the guy.
Tags, who you like, man?
I don't think Andrew Luck's a bad play at 6,400 in tournaments. I don't think you should ever fully fade Luck. I think we saw him bounce back last week. And Dallas is, I mean, as good as they've been as a defense, like they did allow 3 touchdowns to Carson Wentz last week. So, I mean, I don't think that they're not beatable. And Luck, with the running game struggling as much as they are, I do think they go through the air. I think he's one of those guys that you definitely could see a QB1 performance out of. And you have to pay for it. But and then my other one is, and it's funny, we talk so bad about him, but I think Kirk Cousins is a solid tournament play.
I was about to say him as well. He's not my favorite, though. Obviously, you have to mention Russell Wilson for GPP every time it comes up. My guy is Marcus Mariota against the Giants. He's actually been playing pretty well lately. Last week was a disaster. Against the Colts was just a train wreck. 13 pass attempts for 85 yards. But besides that, since the bye, 23 fantasy points, 21, 23, 22. Going up against the Giants, I could see him having a big game. He runs the ball too.
Yeah, he's got nice. I'm all about picking the quarterbacks that can run in a touchdown as well as throw for him. I really like naked quarterback stacks where you don't pair them with a receiver. And Mariota is the kind of guy that allows you to do that because he could run it in on his own.
All right, let's go stack of the week for cash games. Tags you first.
Oh, man. Let's go with Brady and Gronk.
I'm going Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper. Who do you have, Justin?
I'm going to go Ben and Antonio Brown.
All right, let's go stacks for GPP. We know who yours is, Justin. It's Washington.
Yeah, just skip me.
Cousins, Thielen.
Cousins and Thielen for GPP.
Mm-hmm.
I can add one other than the Josh Johnson stack. I think the GPP stack is Dak with Gallup.
I like it.
And then you fade Cooper. I think that'd be really contrarian. Almost every Dak owner would certainly have Cooper.
That's pretty good, man. I like that. I'm going to go with Eli Manning, Beckham, and Barkley. All 3 of them for GPP. Okay, now let's go with our lock of the week. This is the guy we most expect to hit value, so it's not like, well, Zeke's projected to score the most points, so that's who I'm picking. It's who are you putting your name on the line with, who's going to hit value. Tags you first.
I'm going to go with Joe Mixon here. At 6,100, he's just too cheap to overlook. When we talk about running backs and what we look out of them, we're looking for somebody who's a favorite. They're a favorite. We look for someone that's at home. We look for someone that's a 3-down back, and I think we have all that in Mixon, and he's like at a phenomenal price. Like his price doesn't match what he got last week, and it's like hopefully they figured some things out. I'm not confident in Cincinnati at all, but I do know that Oakland faces, I think it's almost 25 rushing attempts per week, so I think we're looking at a 20-plus touch game for Mixon at home as a favorite. I'll take him at 61.
I love Mixon. Thought about using him here. I'm going to split it up, though. I'm going Eric Ebron on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, I'm going Amari Cooper.
Interesting. Yeah, Cooper on FanDuel, really like that. For me, other than Josh Johnson, it is Joe Mixon. I totally agree with everything Tag said. The Chargers' run defense had been really good until Mixon tore him up last week, and obviously Oakland is a perfect matchup. I've owned Mixon all year in my season-long team, and I've always been a little perplexed by their usage with him sometimes. So last week it seemed like they finally decided to just let him loose, and so I know his ownership will be really high, but I still think he's worth it, and very likely he'll be a DFI must-have this week.
All right, guys, and that's all for today's show. Justin, thank you for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And don't forget to check out pristineauction.com for your Christmas gifts. That's Pristine. And check out FanDuel. They've got those primetime slates going on, too. Don't forget, just play on Sunday night. If it doesn't go so well for you on Sunday, make the Sunday night game a lot of fun. Monday night as well. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.